Cold Case, an Angelica Dale Mystery by P.K. Armstrong. Chapter 18. My little alcove was too small for all of us to gather, so after we finished dinner and cleaned up, we retired to the family room. The spacious room at the back of the house boasted an outsized flat-screen TV, fireplace, and large windows. The sectional was large enough to seat the whole family, and Chuck's leather recliner was angled parallel to the couches with a direct view of the TV. The colors were muted gray with pops of yellow and green. There was a small game table in the corner with a dartboard mounted just above it. Wall decor and side table accessories were missing, but I could totally understand considering how much the boys played rough. Despite the lack of small decorations, the room was cozy, especially after Daniel started the gas fire. Jacob handed me a stack of about 35 photos. I looked at the first few and then glanced over at him. He met my gaze at first, but then looked away. "I'm sorry, Jacob," I whispered. The others stopped and were watching us. Sandy with concern. Jacob shrugged. "It's okay," he said, not entirely convincingly. "I should have warned you the pictures might be disturbing, and when you realized, you should have stopped. I could have found someone else who was used to seeing these types of images." My heart had dropped. I felt horrible for what I had exposed him to. "No, no, they are bad, but I just didn't look closely," Sandy said softly. "Oh, Jacob, honey, are you okay?" "Yes, Mom, I'm fine, I promise," he said, his voice steady. I looked down at the pictures, some of which showed the burned bodies of the 4 victims of the Aspen Club. Surprisingly, the fire didn't burn everything beyond recognition. In the main room, the body with the worst damage was Corey, which was found mostly behind the bar, his legs partially sticking out into the floor area. There was something weird about his photo, but I couldn't place my finger on it. Bailey's body was practically in the middle of the dance floor, its direction toward the emergency exit. She had fallen with her arms above her head, and you could see something on her head and face which could have been blood. I looked through the other photos, but did not see anything that she could have fallen on, or could have fallen on her, to cause the damage. Corey was injured first, and then died of smoke inhalation, according to the autopsy record. "Jacob, were you able to plot on the crime scene software where each body was found?" He nodded. "Yes, I did." He got up, eager to have something else to do, and retrieved his thumb drive. I pointed to my bag, which was on the floor, leaning up against one of the sofas. He plugged it in and then connected it to the flat screen and shared his work. I was right. The location of the bodies was not at all what I expected. "Why aren't they all near the exit?" Chuck asked. I nodded. Yes, I was wondering that too. I thought maybe I was confused by the autopsy, fire, and crime scene descriptions. But look. I pulled the file folder out of my bag and slid onto my knees and placed each report next to each other flat on the center coffee table. The autopsy doesn't mention much about placement, just about the type of damage on each of the bodies. But Jacob's diagram is on point and matches the descriptions of where the bodies were found. I reached back and grabbed the photos and started searching through them again. The family sat back and watched until Daniel spoke. "What are you looking for, Angel?" I looked up briefly at each of them and gave them a lopsided smile. "The story." I put the pictures down briefly. "The evidence, the crime scene, tells a story. Just like your dad noticed, there has to be a reason the bodies were found where they were found." "Like what?" Sandy asked. I looked back at the pictures. The picture of the office at Aspen Club showed the most damage. Derek's body wasn't completely destroyed because something large had fallen over on him and protected him. But the whole episode clearly started in the office with Derek. I remembered from the report that there was a trail of accelerant down the hallway. We know that Stormie and Derek fought in his office. What if Derek lit the fire after covering the papers, desk, and file cabinets with oil? "But how did the other people get caught in the blaze?" Daniel asked. I nodded at him. "That is one of the reasons why I don't think Stormie started the fire. If she did, the others would have been alerted. There's no way she overpowered four people, killed them, and then exited that building. Even the detective's report admitted she had no injuries, no scratches, bruises, or cuts. I paused. What if Derek was going to burn the place down for the insurance, and one of the other victims actually set the fire? But couldn't it have been Stormy? Daniel started, but then stopped. No, she couldn't have. No injuries. I nodded. Exactly. But one of the others could have had injuries that were hidden by fire damage. I looked at Corey and Bailey's bodies. I can't tell from these pictures, I muttered. Chuck stood up and sat on the couch closest to me and picked up the photos. He hurried through the pictures of the bodies, focusing on the structural damage. There could have been two fires. Even so, there should have been enough time for the sprinklers to minimize the damage. Maybe not completely because of the oil, but it should have given them time to get out. That is what fire sprinklers are for. Chuck seemed distracted as he stared at the photos, but before I could question him, Sandy got up suddenly. Wait a minute, and hurried from the room. She came back seconds later with a magnifying glass. Here, try this, Angel. Using the magnifying glass, I looked closely at the bodies. Shaking my head, I muttered, no way. I remembered in the box of evidence was a small metal rod that was badly burned. I couldn't tell what it was, and had placed the bag back in the box to look at later. I pulled the picture of Corey's head, a close-up of Bailey, and debris just a few feet away. What? What did you find? Jacob asked excitedly. Look, I said, and cleared away the papers, laying the photos next to the others. There is damage to Corey and Bailey's heads. That is blood, in the soot and dust on their faces and in their hair. And look what is a few feet from Bailey. Clearly, the crime scene techs had only retrieved part of the metal. They all leaned in to look. That rod is part of an ice hammer from the back of the bar.